My name is Tiffany Schmidt. I'm an assistant professor in the Neurobiology Department at Northwestern University. I've been there for about 4 years now, and I have 2 kids, 3 and 1, and love craft beer and board games as well as science. So I study the visual system, so I'm really fascinated by how light affects our behavior and physiology, and we try to understand in my lab the circuits from the retina to the brain all the way to behavior by which light does this. So we use a lot of different genetic mouse models, electrophysiology, and behavior. It kind of was, but only because it was a default. So I don't think I really understood what that meant when I came to graduate school. I was fairly naive, but the more I progressed, the more it looked like a good gig, and so I just stuck with that track. So I think a few different things have helped me be successful. The first is that I'm fairly obsessed with knowing the answers to scientific questions, and I really love science, and so I think those two things combined have let me overcome some of the hard times in science when things aren't working, or you're having a difficult time with your experiments, or you're even just feeling a bit like this is such a long slog, how do you keep going? It's easier to keep going when you just love what you do and you really need to know the answer. I think also I'm very goal-oriented in the sense that I used to have the goals I would tell my professors about when I wanted to graduate or get my data for a paper or whatever, get an experiment done, and then I had my secret goal, which was half the time. And so by always kind of keeping my big end goal in mind, I think I was able to progress fairly efficiently. And then I think the third thing was probably learning to communicate and network effectively. So I had PIs that really helped me along the way, like my graduate advisor, Paulo Kafuji, was really big on getting me to meetings where I talked about my research. I gave a lot of posters, so people really knew me and associated me with my work, and that got me started with communicating my science at an early stage. And then once I became a postdoc, Samar Hattar, my postdoc advisor, was amazing at communicating. He's a very dynamic speaker, he's very good at writing, and so he really taught me how to give a good talk, write a good paper, write a good cover letter, and advocate for my science. And so that kind of folded in with building a network by communicating with people constantly throughout my training. I mean, in addition to the, pushing me out there to talk about my research and meet a lot of people, I think I've always felt very sort of supported by the scientific community around me. So in addition to just, Paulo being a great PhD mentor and Samar being a great postdoc mentor, people within the field have also been really good. And because I've been around and they've known me for a while, I felt like when I got my job, it kind of took a village to do that. I had people willing to write me letters for 70 job applications, which now that I write letters, I realize is kind of a horrible thing to ask of people, but they did it without complaining. And I feel like, I've always been able to go to lots of different people with questions about every single stage of the process. And so, and that's been men and women, and actually in my case, mostly men, just because there's more men in my field than women. So no, I don't think there are enough female role models in science. I think, clearly between the postdoc and faculty levels, we lose a lot of females, and maybe in part because there's not enough female role models. And I think in general, just having a diversity of humans that are successful scientists will benefit the scientific community, both by just injecting a lot of new ideas and perspectives, but then also showing young trainees that someone like them can do it. And I don't think we're there yet, but I do think the conversation is starting. So I think it will get better because it's finally something that people are aware of. And you look around the meeting and it's such a nice diverse group of junior scientists, right? And so if we can just keep them in science, right, I think we'll be in good shape. I'll never forget my first faculty meeting as a junior faculty member. We were picking a list of reviewers to review our department externally, and Catherine Woolley, who's a senior professor in our department, was like, can we all just agree right now that we're going to have a list of 50% women and 50% men? And everyone in the room was just like, of course. And they were so just like, all the men were fine, like just, of course we would do that, right? And just seeing that, I was like, I knew I was in the right place, and it's really nice to see, someone be able to just bring that up and people to just be like, of course that would be the way we would do it. So I think we'll get there. I think they are more recognized than they used to be. I still don't think we're there yet. I think awards, you start to see a better representation of women for some of these big awards, and certainly you see backlash for different awards if they have all men or all male panels, online. But I still think we're not there, and I often think to myself how weird it is that we're proud when it's like 50-50, but how weird would it be to just see it like an award that was given to just all women? Like, we see that with all men and we don't think twice about it, and we never ever see that for women. I would just love to see that sometime and see what people would say. So it's definitely a challenge. I didn't really realize how much I worked until I had small children, both of which I had after I started my faculty career. But one of the best things I ever heard, Felice Dunn, who's at UCSF, who's an assistant professor, said to me once, people will tell you there's never a right time, but there's also really never a wrong time to have kids, right? They come and you just find some kind of balance and you make it work. Yeah, I think sometimes there's a conception out there that it's so much work that it's hard to have a family in science, but I actually think it's the opposite, because you're your own boss, so you make your own hours, and so you can be where you need to be when you need to be there, and that includes for both your lab and your family. And so, what I had to start doing was I leave every day at 5 o'clock so that I can make it home in time for dinner and putting our kids to bed. They go to bed super early, so I have to go, right? And then if I have more work to do, I can just do it afterwards. But I don't have to miss my kids' like pediatrician appointments. I just come in late that day, and that's okay, right? And I think parenthood in general is becoming more normalized in science for both men and women too, and I think it's just expected that sometimes you have to do that and sometimes you have to do work. So what I always tell any young scientist, male or female, that if this is what you want to do, then you should just proceed accordingly and be excellent, and there's no reason that you can't, do it. I think, I think it's clearly more difficult in general for like women and minorities to be successful just due to the implicit biases that are there. But I still really believe that, if it's what you want to do, you won't get the job if you don't try for the job, right? And so you should just be as excellent as you can and just try to overcome that, because I think the first wave of people that eventually make this kind of a more representative community of the population as a whole are going to probably have to work harder, just like that's always been for underrepresented groups. And so I just tell them, just be excellent and just keep going and just build a network of people that can help you in whatever way you need.